I need a couple volunteers to pass these out. I lost my one volunteer. Where'd he go?
Passing these out there, buddy.
Yeah, why don't you take that side? If you need more, let me know. You take here back, I'll take here forward. We'll tag team it. Just one for you guys? All right. Do you guys need one or two? One? Okay. One for them, one for him, one for her. She needs one right there. So. Okay. You got one? Hello. All right. Would you like a handout?
It wasn't easy.
So I want to see that next time I'm teaching, man.
Would you? All right.
Save you the.
I've already hit. Yeah. Two. One, two, Joe.
Sure.
Okay. Two. I think we got it. All right, if anyone else needs one, Jesse's got a couple. Oh yeah, microphones, thank you. One, two. All right, good morning. Sorry, I got a little caught up just talking and socializing, and I looked up and it was time. So welcome to Chapter 5. We've had quite a tour so far. So I'm going to take a little bit different approach today. First thing I want to do is I'm going to go through this first section, a broad view, and talk about it, and then we'll go back in a little bit later after we talk about a couple details on how it relates to everything. We will go deep into each verse and kind of the specific meanings. So let's go ahead. I'm going to read straight through. Come now, you rich, weep and howl for the miseries that are coming upon you. Your riches have rotted, and your garments are moth-eaten. Your gold and silver have corroded, and their corrosion will be evidence against you and will eat your flesh like fire. You have laid up treasures in the last days. Behold, the wages of the laborers who mowed your fields, which you kept back by fraud, are crying out against you, and the cries of the harvesters have reached out to the ears of the Lord of hosts. You have lived on the earth in luxury and in self-indulgence. You have fattened your hearts in a day of slaughter. You have condemned and murdered the righteous person. He does not resist you. So you can kind of see now a little bit of a tone change. It's a little bit less teaching like Paul, a little bit more kind of Old Testament judgment. And one question when I was reading this, and I want to pose to you guys, and I want to discuss a little bit, is why now? Why bring this up in this exact moment versus maybe starting with it? Because obviously the rich who have influenced this congregation, these people, so why not hammer them first, or maybe in the middle, or maybe even at the end of 5? You guys have any ideas or thoughts, insights on that? Guess is okay. Assumptions. So let's go and look at context, because this is something that I was looking at and kind of thought was interesting. So going through again, now obviously this wasn't the only topics of each chapter, but I'm going to kind of highlight. In chapter 1, we get that warning about focusing on your selfish desires. You start to see this progression. We start to understand what's going on. He addresses favoritism of the rich, dishonoring the poor, and to some extent, we get our first introduction to the attitude of these elites. What are they doing when he says, why are you prioritizing these people? He says, they're taking you to court. they're abusing you. Why are you sucking up to them effectively? Chapter 3 starts to get into the deep understanding of what's wrong with our hearts, what's causing these things internally. Because remember, we talked in chapter 1 that the issue is a trial, and we've slowly discovered it's not an external trial, it's a trial of their hearts. And so we figure out, where's this trial of their hearts coming from? We got that selfish ambition and that bitter jealousy coming in. And then in 4, he rounds it out with, okay, there's conflict. That was the first line. Why do you think there's conflict? And that's the conflict. The selfish ambition, which is going into worldly wisdom. They're relying on themselves. Remember, they're either not praying, they're trying to get things for themselves, or even if they are praying, it was what? I think I heard someone say it. Santa Claus praying? Yeah. So yeah, I call it Santa Claus praying. Give me this, give me this, give me this. No, all the favoritism, self-reliance, they were covetous. Remember, to covet, it ties into that concept of bitter jealousy. And this led to the quarrels, the oppression of the poor, friendship with the world, the spiritual adultery, and enmity with God. And with that in mind, ending there, remember he ended 4 with, this is what's going on, now you know, so you can't plead ignorance. What are you going to do about it? And now in 5, in this first line, it kind of seems like he's saying, let me show you what happens if you don't do anything about it. This is the result. All these things we just, weep and moan because you're fattening yourself for the slaughter. So he's painting a pretty grim picture. And I think, at least it seems to seem this way, that he's very strategically put it here to, obviously, yes, this is a call for the rich, but also it's to his followers, the church, to know this is what you got to look forward to if you stay here. This is where you're going to head out.
It also kind of gives some reassurance. I forget about it. It's also given reassurance, that you've condemned the righteous person. There seems to be a small group here who have not fallen into the traps of the rich versus poor, the selfish ambitions. So imagine being the righteous person reading this who have felt like you've been under pressure, under constant scrutiny, under, criticisms from the rich, feeling all that pressure. And, James is reassuring, the righteous person, hey, you've not given up, you've not given in, their reward is coming, or punishment,
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I see you, once again, there's that kind of calm reassurance of going, all right, I'm going to keep going. I'm going to, these people, they can punish me all they want here on earth, but one day, what's happening? They're going to get their just desserts,
Yep.
right? And, we're going to keep enduring.
And you really see that a little bit later. We'll get deeper into that, but your point's exactly right, because he goes into that as well when he starts talking about, their patience, keeping in that. We'll get to that part as well. But yeah, that's the other half of that coin is, don't worry. I'll take care of this. Their time will come. You got it?
The rich that he's referring to in this particular chapter. Sorry. Yeah, I thought it was loud. But anyway, years ago, I read in there's a commentary, and I can't remember which commentary it was in regards to this. And they actually inferred that the rich that they were speaking to in this chapter were actually not Christians. Now, I don't know if that's wholly true, but he's not actually speaking. He's speaking about people that are obviously wealthy but are not Christians. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that, or if, like I said, that's what he inferred, and I can't remember the guy's name.
There is some indication to that, because he says these people from outside that are coming in, you're sucking up to them.
Right.
It's hard to tell.
Yeah.
I mean, they are coming into the temple, into the church with it. So why are they there? So are they inviting them and then trying to suck up? I'm not sure. I don't know if you have any insights into that. It's to some extent, there's another factor about these rich that we're going to get to that I think is more important. But I don't want to say that's not significant. It's worse if they are Christians.
Right.
But to your point, if we go all the way back to chapter 1, when we first began, the very first thing we were talking about, who are these people?
Right.
They are converted Jews in foreign lands that are falling prey to the temptations, the culture, and the environment that they're living in. That was the beginning of it. That was the history. So that alone lends some credibility to that claim.
I would probably disagree with just the thought of trying to see if they're non-Christians, only because, he's dealt with the rich before. And once again, this is a letter read before the churches, right? So this is a condemnation for the rich to hear, right? And it's a specific rich. Being rich itself has nothing to do. But I think when you piece the puzzles together, as you were saying, or the pieces together, the puzzle, like James 2, these rich are coming into your assembly, you're accepting them, you're getting them the better seats, you're giving them the better places of honor, hey, come sit with me, you're giving them all the attention, and then they take over and oppress. They take over and they begin to teach things that are corrupt. And then in chapter 4, I think he's calling out, it has led to this infiltration of the church of now everybody seeking worldly things, everybody seeking their own pleasures, not thinking of each other, above themselves. And then we get into this judgment aspect. Well, if you put judgment, materialism, selfish desires, and then also with the rich coming in with their gold, here to me, he's saying, why are you judging another man's servant? The judgment is coming, hey, I'm rich, you're not. Right, because going back to James chapter 1, the rich, he's trying to do what? He's trying to humble the rich, and that's a Christian, mindset. When you become a Christian, you realize that your riches give you nothing. So you're humbled by Christ, and the poor are being what? Exalted. And I'm not saying there's not a blanket condemnation to rich in general, but I think here, as you pointed out, he's trying to prepare them. Hey, remember, the Lord is coming, and that's where we're kind of going to. So change your ways. You can't keep going this way, or else, right? And it would seem fitting to me that they were a part of the assembly and infiltrating the assembly. Whether you want to call that a true Christian or not, we can get into that term. But I think they were at least pretending and showing up. Why would they be at the assembly if not to worship and trying to at least follow the Messiah?
And unfortunately, they might not be. It could be purely an infiltration, a scheme. You see cultures if we can't get rid of them, we'll go in and we'll get them to worship our gods. We'll get them to do it. We'll pollute their beliefs so much, then it won't matter anyway. So it could be something along those. We don't know their motivations.
Yeah. I think, and I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I think where that idea honestly comes from, if I remember correctly, I am getting old, so my memory don't work sometimes, is from James 2:7, where it says, they do not blaspheme the noble name by which you are called. So I think that's where that idea may have come from. I just want to know your thoughts. I agree with Jesse was saying. I was just kind of wanting to know.
Yeah.
So.
And kind of springboarding off one of Jesse's statements about, remember, it's not just that being rich. We've talked about this before. Being rich isn't the issue. Right here with the language in verse 1 really is very telling. Because he says, come now, you rich. It doesn't say, come now, you who are rich. Come now, you who have a lot. It says, you rich. And what he's meaning by this is you who identify, like that's who you are. That's what you're wrapping up everything you are about. It's not just your possessions, it's your behavior, how your wealth has shaped who you are, how you think, and how you treat other people. Because remember, they're allowing these negative influences. And so I think that's an important concept. And I just want to, we're going to detour just slightly because I think this is an important thing to get into. The issue isn't like, do I save? Are there places in the Bible where saving has been praised? It's a good idea to do it? Yes. We're going to get into a couple of those, and I just want to compare and contrast the differences between saving up and storing for God's purpose versus hoarding. And you can see, I'm just going to skirt through some of this little list I gave you guys, but obviously, biblical stewardship, so saving, is motivated by wisdom. We'll see a couple examples of that. It's for future needs. Not necessarily just individual needs, but needs of other people as well. It does involve your planning. Again, going back to what we just read about, you're making plans without God. The planning involves thought about God's plan and God's wants for his people. It's more about serving a purpose and producing and giving to life, a lot less about everything we've talked about. Trusting in yourself, self-reliance, bitter jealousy, greed, self-indulgences. So those are the differences. So the first I want to give, we'll go through a quick example of some personal savings that James would not condemn. And we're going to go to Proverbs 6 for this. Sorry. Good old allergies. I'm going to start at verse 6. Go to the ant, O sluggard. Consider her ways and be wise. Remember, he said it's based on wisdom. Without having any chief officers or rulers, she prepares her bread in summer and gathers her food in harvest. So this is wisdom, anticipating needs. The ant knows that winter's coming and that we're going to have needs. There's going to be less. So that's personal saving. That's not hoarding. That's not storing up riches for, hey, pull the armchair back, kick back, relax, have a cocktail for the rest of my life. I've got all I ever need. This is, I'm going to be in need soon, so I'm going to make sure I have enough. Next example, let's go to Genesis 41. So go way back. And I'm going to start at 34. Let Pharaoh proceed to appoint overseers over the land and take 1/5 of the produce of the land of Egypt during the 7 plentiful years. And let them gather all the food for these good years that are coming and storing up grain under the authority of Pharaoh for food in the cities, and let them keep it. That food shall be in reserve for the land against the 7 years of famine that are to occur in the land of Egypt, so that the land may not perish through famine. So who wants to tell me about what the context here is? Joseph and Pharaoh. What happened here? You remember? Oh, no, you remember. Yeah. So just as she said, Joseph interpreted Pharaoh's dream. He's like, what the heck is this? And he says, well, you're going to have 7 years of plenty, followed by 7 years of famine. So that was, so God, who enabled, I just gave it away, who enabled him to interpret this dream? God. So this is going through God's wisdom, God's plan. Yes, that's a good point. Yeah, what he said, is, in case you didn't hear, is Joseph never claimed he was interpreting dreams. He was doing this through God. He was just God's conduit for interpreting this for him. So that's exactly, it's a perfect point. So you can see the difference between this. This is saving. This is storing 7 years. That's a long time, especially in their lifespans then, to be saving. That's a lot of trust. You know, what could they have done with that grain if they wanted at the time? We got all this surplus. We can cash in. We can sell it to other nations and acquire great wealth. And then, we spend it all in the next 7 years. But they trusted. They had faith in God's plan. They trusted, and they saved that grain and saved a lot of lives in the process. So now let's contrast this to a well-known story. Luke 12. And I'm going to start at 15. And he said to them, "Take care and be on your guard against all covetousness." This is Jesus speaking to them. "For one's life does not consist of abundance of his possessions." And he told them in a parable, saying, "The land of a rich man produces plentifully. And he thought to himself, 'What shall I do? For I have nowhere to store my crops.' And he said, 'I will do this. I will tear down my barns and build larger ones. And there I will store all my food and my grains and my goods. And I will say to my soul, Soul, you have ample goods laid up for many years. Relax, eat, drink, and be merry.' But God said to him, 'Fool, this night your soul is required of you, and the things you have prepared, whose will they be? So is the one who lays up treasures for himself and is not rich towards God.'" So what does he mean by rich towards God? Spiritual wealth. What else could it be? Rich towards God, helping people. Yeah. I saw some mic kind of go up a little bit. Did someone want to? All right, I imagined it. I just want to make sure that someone had another point. Yeah, so that's the difference. You can see the contrast between these things. You see the language. What were his motivations? What was the rich man's motivations here? Selfish. Everything we just talked about. Kick back, lay up, and relax, because now I've got plenty. And we will get into this later on. That's exactly the attitude that James is addressing and what he's warning these people about.
I mean, the parable shows that he already had enough. He had already filled the barns he had, right? So he did have a surplus. But then you think, how many years, how much time and effort did it take him to build more when he could have been serving, handing it out, doing so much more with it that, could have been rich towards God. And that's the thing. It's not that God condemned the saving. He condemned the over-saving. He condemned the overemphasis on it. If your whole life is bent towards, well, I got to make sure I can, in today's world, retire. If your whole world is driving that and you miss the kingdom, I always tell people they're always looking for that next thing. Well, I'll serve God when I do this. I'll serve God after I this. And a lot of times it's, once I finish college, once I finish this project I'm working on, once I retire, and they push that needle down to the one day they turn around and they've never done anything for God. And, then God's going, hey, now your life's required of you. What have you done? Well, I was going to. I had good intentions.
Which again is a key theme in James, faith without works. I meant to. I was thinking of you all the time, God. It was always on my mind. But it produced no fruit. So, yeah, that's the key. And I wanted to take this little detour because with any, context matters. With any verse, it's always important. You can read this and automatically assume, oh, well, it says rich or evil. Evil, rich, evil, you're a horrible person. No, it's the attitude about how you're managing that wealth. It's your attitude about the future. There's nothing wrong with planning for retirement. The ant planned. It's where's your heart at? Are you planning to retire on a luxury yacht? Or do you want to make sure you're going to be okay and you're going to make sure other people are okay too? There's a big contrast between those two attitudes. All right, so we're still in verse 1. So let's get, because there's a couple other terms that are really important in this. Give me a second. I'm going to get myself back in track here. All right, so a Come now, you rich. Weep and howl for the miseries that are coming upon you. So it sounds pretty dire warning. I sometimes get real interested in the exact translation words in here. And the word howl in here is a very, very specific word that has been found in the Old Testament. We're not going to go, but if you want to look through it, like Isaiah 13:6. And it specifically describes the terrifying lament of people facing imminent divine justice. You fool. I'm like calling for your life right now. It is time. Divine justice, this moment. This isn't just friendly financial advice. This is judgment language. And I thought that was very important because he's really digging deep. He's really trying to get this message across, both to the rich, but also to maybe some of the people who are thinking, ooh, I want to be like this, starting to get influenced by them, and a reminder to stay away from those kinds of things. So let's go ahead and get into verse 2. And I'm going to go verse 2 and 3. Your riches have rotted, your garments are moth-eaten, your gold and silver have corroded, and their corrosion will be evidence against you and eat your flesh like fire. So, why do you think he names these three things specifically? Your riches, your garments, and your gold and silver. In the ancient world, these were the three categories of wealth. Stocks, bonds, and whatever. That's how you demonstrated your wealth. Fancy garments, gold and silver, or you've stockpiled barns of grain. Those are all ways. And this is just my thoughts a little bit, but he's making sure he's covering them all. Because some guy, if he just says your riches, your gold and silver, if somebody's riches are in his grain, he can easily start rationalizing. He's not talking to me. He's covering them all. He's making sure they know all of these things, storing up all of them. They will rot, they will be moth-eaten, they will corrode. He's using each of these to show them that they all turn into nothing. They're all hevel, they're all temporary, and their accumulation can be this distraction. What do you think he means by a testimony against them?
This is like a courtroom scene with witnesses.
Yeah. So what you're saying, this is just like a courtroom scene. And it is. This is, again, it's judgment language. There's a lot of court language in here. These are your witnesses. So this corroded, think about it just in context. The grain's rotted. What does that mean? What's that indication of? Well, instead of feeding other people with it, you just let it rot. You can think of it like that. Corroded. It just sat there because you hoarded it. So now it's tarnished and gone. It's that language like you wasted this stuff on your own selfish desires because you wanted to relax, you wanted these things instead of people in need. And that is also the big context here as well. Remember, we've seen this, talking about it in chapter 2 and other things, taking advantage of the poor. And we're going to see again, taking advantage of the poor. That's the other side of this coin that I didn't mention I think is really important. It's also hoarding when you know there's people in need. There's no ignorance here. This is a place you could see that there are people who already have torn garments, aren't eating. You'll see, we'll get a little bit deeper in some of these day laborers, that whatever they make, that's how they eat that day, or they don't.
I think it's hard, and one of the reasons why there's always these warnings against rich, once again, it's the riches themselves, right? We've had rich people in Scripture, who've had wealth upon wealth upon wealth. But what it does is oftentimes riches do this thing, especially when you're looking at yourself, comparing to those who don't have what you have. Most people who are rich didn't walk into it, right? Even in that day and age, unless you're a king, royal. But I think he's talking about people who've worked hard, right? They've worked hard for it. The guy who built his barns, he's obviously out there working. And what's the tendency to do if someone does not have as much as you? They're lazy, they don't deserve it, they haven't earned it. And so we can go too far, and especially in the some cultures that we live, like, hey, you didn't earn this, you didn't deserve this. And that, once again, it forgets about what we have not earned. Yeah, you've earned your riches, but what about your salvation, right? There are things in your life that you have that you didn't earn and you don't deserve. And so we need to look at every area of our life and go, you know what? This person may not have earned what I worked hard for this. But God has blessed me so that I can do what? So that I can bless others.
Bless the world, yeah.
Right? And if I'm not willing to do it, even to somebody who doesn't deserve it, then we don't understand grace. Because he's going to get into, remember, Jesus is coming back. And what does that have to trigger in your mind? Oh, wait, that's something I don't deserve. And I don't want to be on the wrong end of that.
Yeah. And these are gifts. The ability to earn this great wealth was a gift bestowed upon you by God. And part of that, those gifts you're expected to give back out of that.
I really liked how you pointed out how he talks about the grains as well, if like having a lot of grains, because grain doesn't necessarily go bad overnight. Having a lot of stock of grain, I'm assuming as well that they don't mill the flour that they need or the grain that they need until the day they need it. And so whole wheat berries don't really go bad until like a year or two. Like they can sit for a really, really, really long time until they go what would be spoiled. How long do you need to wait until you use the stuff at the bottom? You have so much a surplus of what you have that it goes bad. What technically doesn't go bad very fast.
Yeah. All the while knowing there's people that needed that. So, kind of locking it in before we move on, I just want to go to Matthew 25 real quick, because you can hear the echoes of this just beautifully. And I'm going to start at 31. I'm going to kind of plow through this real quick. It's called the final judgment. When the Son of Man comes in his glory and all the angels with him, then he will sit on the glorious throne. Before him will be gathered all the nations, and he will separate people one from another as a shepherd separates the sheep from the goats. And he will place the sheep on his right, but the goats on his left. Then the king will say to those on his right, "Come, you who are blessed by my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world. For I was hungry, and you gave me food. I was thirsty, and you gave me drink. I was a stranger, and you welcomed me. I was naked, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you visited me. I was in prison, and you came to me." Then the righteous will answer to him, saying, "Lord, when did we see you hungry and feed you, and thirsty and give you drink? And when did we see a stranger and naked and clothe you? And when did we see the sick in prison and visit you?" And the king will answer them, "Truly I say to you, as did the one in the least of these, my brothers, you did it to me." So you can see, well, we'll go ahead and then 41, the separate. "Then you will say to those on his left, 'Depart from me, you cursed, into the eternal fire prepared for the devil and his angels. For I was hungry, and you gave me no food. I was thirsty, and you gave me no drink. I was a stranger, and you did not welcome me, naked, and you did not clothe me.'" That's what he's saying. Right there, the difference. This is what's going to happen. Starting to go a little fast because I don't want to run out of time. All right, let's go ahead and get to verse 4. Behold, the wages of the laborers who mowed your fields, which you kept back by fraud, are crying out against you. And the cries of the harvesters have reached the ears of the Lord of hosts. So what are we talking about now? Specifically how, now we're getting real deep. He's letting them know, I know how you got this money. It is fraudulent. You held back. We had just talked about a minute ago, the people of this time, whatever they need, If you didn't pay them that day, it wasn't like, oh, well, I've got a little extra, I'll eat leftovers. I'll open up the fridge and have leftovers. That wasn't the case.
Under the law of Israel in the Old Testament times, they were not to harvest all the field. They were to leave the gleaning for the poor. Can you repeat that?
Yeah,
In Old Testament times, they were commanded to never harvest all their crop off of the field, but to leave a gleaning for the poor that would come in every day. That's how Ruth, and Naomi came to survive when they came back to Israel from Canaan land. They came into there and they were able to eat from the generosity of their people.
it was for the sojourners, too, people who were traveling.
When it goes with riches, I'd like to read a few verses to help you understand some of it. In Deuteronomy 8:18, but you shall remember the Lord your God, for it is he who is giving you power to make wealth, that he may confirm his covenant which he swore to your fathers. This as it is this day. And in 1 Corinthians 29:12, both riches and honor come from thee, and thou dost rule over all, and in thy hand is power and might, and it lies in thy hand to make great and to strengthen everyone. Ecclesiastes 5:19, furthermore, as for every man to whom God has given riches and wealth, he has also empowered him to eat from them and to receive his reward and rejoice in his labor. This is the gift of God. And in Hosea 2:8, for she does not know that it was I who gave her the grain, the new wine, and the oil, and lavished on her silver and gold, which they used for Baal. And then the perils of riches we've talked about in Deuteronomy 8:13 and 14. And when your hearts, and this is Joshua speaking to the people when they've come out of Israel going into Canaan. And when your hearts and your herds and your flocks multiply, and your silver and gold multiply, and all that you have multiplies, then your heart becomes proud, and you forget the Lord your God, who brought you out from the land of Egypt, out of the house of slavery. So it's all about forgetting God in everything we do. He has to be the main thing in our life at all times. Doesn't matter whether we're poor or moderately in good wealth or rich. What we call riches. Riches are growing different every day. We got a man's becoming a trillionaire. So.
Yeah, the first trillionaire, yeah.
Yes, but he does, if you do good with that, like we were talking about, that's a good thing. And then Deuteronomy, I read that in 13. But in Psalm 62:10, it says, do not trust in oppression and do not vainly hope in robbery. If riches increase, do not set your heart upon them. So it's that same story that you've been telling us all along. James, set your heart on God. Be answerable to him. And let your thoughts always be about the Lord and his will for our lives.
There was another great point in the middle of that what you read is also the pride side. This is what's dangerous about riches. This is the warning about riches. It's what it can do to you.
Now we have a New Testament example. You know what it is? Sower and the seed.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
You sow your seed in shallow ground, and the riches, the cares of the world will choke it out.
Yeah.
As you're talking, it's actually kind of reminding me of Job 12. It kind of reminds me of Job 12:5, where it says, a lamp is despised in the thought of one who is at ease. It is made ready for those whose feet slip. And so kind of the meaning, or I guess the meaning of that is that, of course, this is obviously, I'm reading from Job, so it's dealing with, his friends saying he's sinful, that's why he's suffering and stuff like that. But the idea is whenever people are like, of course, I'm not saying it's wrong to be wealthy, but the people that are at that level and they're not facing as much suffering as other people, it's like they look down upon those people that are struggling. Almost like carries this idea that I am doing it the right way. I've got it figured out. You get kind of arrogant. And because I've known people, you know, that have money, and when you go to talk to them, they talk to you like you're, you know, right. I
Oh,
don't know,
you're
that's-
so cute. Yeah.
So as you're reading this in James, that's kind of what I'm thinking about. It's like, how many times have you, you're struggling and you have people that are looking down upon you? And I understand the idea that what the Job's friends were saying is you must have done something. You know, I know that's kind of like the meaning, but I don't know. That's what I think.
Building on that, because that's a great point. It's a good segue into this next line. And the cries of the harvesters have reached the ears of the Lord of hosts. So you said they're not suffering. Well, they don't realize how much they are suffering. They think they're not. But do you know what the term Lord of hosts, that designation for God, what that's indicative of? The armies, the Lord of the armies. So the workers are powerless against them. They lack these legal resources, right? We already know they lack legal resources because they're being taken to court. He said it in chapter 2. So if you don't like this, I'll just take you to court. I'll outsue you, and you need food every day. I can last forever, and then you'll starve before I have to pay you. But James reminds them that the cries of the straight are going straight to the leader of the armies. Yeah, God knows everything I've done and everything I will do. Yes, absolutely. And so, this false sense of security, he's warning them. You think you're going to be okay? Let me show you what's going to happen. And
What's our response to the rich when we see they're in peril?
this is kind of getting like a track meet, you hand it. I'm sorry.
When, the New Testament tells us when we see a brother sin a sin unto death, we're to go to him and warn him.
Yeah, warn him. Not from judgment.
No, because we love him.
Yeah, we're warning you because we love you. We want you to see that you are suffering. You may not be feeling the effects of that suffering right now, but trust me, you are.
And that ties in with the earlier James. He's asking them to weep and to mourn for their sin, or you're going to weep and howl because of your sin. So you can weep and mourn before judgment and humble yourself before God, or you can weep and howl after judgment when hope is lost. And he says, humble yourselves before the mighty hand of the Lord and let him exalt you. All of this is all about exaltation and people wanting to be exalted. And the Lord promises us that he will exalt the humble. And that's counterintuitive to our mind. It's so upside down, right, that we just don't understand it until you've actually gone through the humbling stage and know that God cares for you and cherishes you. It brings a different kind of exaltation, not a pride, but that confidence and boldness, but also compassion. And that's what they're lacking. They're lacking the compassion because they've exalted themselves, which is from a very prideful point of view. It's being exalted is not bad when other people do it. I tell my son all the time, he's a great baseball player, but let everyone else tell you. Don't go around telling everybody else.
Yeah, how annoying is that?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, look how great I am. Look at my pictures. We all know. We've seen that ourselves. That's not our place. Let's go ahead and get into verse 5. You have lived on the earth in luxury and in self-indulgence. You have fattened your hearts in a day of slaughter. So the words used for luxury and self-indulgence, again, we have our own definitions of this, but I wanted to look up the actual Greek words, and it's a soft, extravagantly comfortable, and delicate ease. That's luxury. Soft, all the pillows you can imagine. Self-indulgence implies wasteful, excessive, pleasure-seeking overindulgence. That's why I wanted to talk about the Luke chapter where we talk, build more barns so I can kick back and relax. And what are the results of this? What are they preparing themselves for? The day of slaughter. That's some pretty significant imagery right there, is it not? So this is what's going to happen. Fine, you want to live the life right now? This extremely transient existence, this is what's going to happen. The Lord of hosts is hearing the cries. And there'll be something to pay for this afterwards. I'm not going to go there because we are running a little late, but you see a similar, if you want to get into this on your own a little more, Amos chapter 6 gets into a little bit of that, and it is in the notes. So going back with the fattened, we've seen this. You fatten up an animal. The animal's thinking, ooh, this is great. I'm getting everything I want. Abundant ease, comfort, just in time for this indulgence, for the judgment to come afterwards. So let's get into verse 6. You have condemned and murdered the righteous person. He does not resist you. So this isn't the first time we've kind of had the murder has come up. And so do you guys think they're literally murdering people? Yeah, put Christ to death, yeah. Is it possible they are murdering people? Yeah. We've already seen what happens if some of these laborers go enough days without food. Remember, they're taking them to court.
Speaking of Christ, I hold strongly here in James 6 that the righteous person is the ultimate fulfillment of Jesus here. Like this attitude, this selfishness, this selfish desire, this need for more is what killed the Christ. Because he's going to turn into, be patient therefore, my brothers, because the righteous one, the Lord, is coming back. And so he's kind of calling out, and we all need to be reminded of that. It's the song we sing, can he still feel the nails every time that I fail? The fact that my sins put Jesus on the cross, even though I wasn't there, he paid for my sins future, right? But this attitude, this mindset, this selfishness is what led Jesus to be killed on the cross, and he did not resist you. And so it looks as if you're winning here on this earth. You've won. You've put him on the cross. But be patient. Therefore, brothers, the Lord's coming back. So there's this contrast of that earthly, how it looks. And the psalmist dealt with this all the time. Why do the evil seem like they're getting all the stuff, while us who are righteous, we're the ones suffering all the time? And James is pulling from the Sermon on the Mount and is going to reverse. It may look one way, but deep down, it's something else is going on.
And it also, layered on top of that, again, the warning, don't let this turn into bitter jealousy. Because they're also seeing it that way.
To me, it almost seems like these wealthy people had a huge influence over the decisions that were being made, like almost like a judge, like they were. I mean, I can be taking this wrong, just talking out, but it seemed like these rich people had an influence over, like the courts and the land and things of that nature. I don't know.
It could be. So you're saying it seems like what's going on here is these wealthy have influence over everything. And yeah, and that could be part. Again, they're in a foreign land. They very likely do have control over these people in every aspect outside of the church. They're landowners. So then they're trying, and that's the problem. This guy controls so much, so they're giving them more authority and more influence over them. So that could certainly be going on.
Well, I was going to say, kind of along those lines, them having the influence, they're breaking these people. They're trying to break them down without even probably realizing that's what they're doing. And they're going to cause them to stumble. And that's a fear they should have, is, causing these righteous people to stumble. I think more so than the righteous people not realizing that that's happening.
That's a beautiful point. The worst thing you can is cause the righteous to stumble. That's a really, really good point, and I guess the perfect place to close. Thanks, guys.